Unlocked, the home of common sense that speaks Britain's language with me, Martin Daubney, plus today, comedian and British pun champion of 2015, Leo Curse, and our first ever episode of Tier 5 Friday. Now let's face it, we're all skint, miserable and bored, apart from the endless conveyor belts of bureaucrats, busybodies and minted media bullshitters who are turning us into prisoners in our own homes while they're all on full pay. And as basic liberties such as sinking a few pints in the pub or going out for a pizza are now a forlorn, distant memory, we're here to help you keep up your chins and your spirits by hosting our Unlocked Lock-In.
Woo! Woo!
Forget comic relief, we're COVID relief. Who writes this shit?
You!
Via Zoom, we will also be joined by our Queen of the North, June Slater, who, trust me, is angrier than Jamiroquai when he was accused of stealing Nancy Pelosi's laptop from the Capitol building. In our alternative news review, we'll be taking a look at a few of the week's stories that have caught our jaundiced eyes. Plus, we will reveal the results of the Tier 5 Friday poll, where we asked you to name this week's most annoying asshats. We gave you a choice of 3 prize puddings, but will it be Piers Morgan? Boo! COVID coppers?
No!
Or Nicola Sturgeon? That's a Scottish boo. Okay, the boo. But tops unlocks wall of shame. But before we get on to the meat and drink of the show, Leo, I've got to ask you, what the fucking hell is a pun champion, and how do you win it?
Well, man, basically, so when I started out in comedy, you can't. All comedians are left wing. At least they pretend to be left wing. So if you're right wing, you've got to like completely hide your politics. And so I did puns instead, and I think a lot. Gary Delaney's fairly sort of heterodox, fairly he's not woke, he's not a lefty liberal. So yeah, I was doing puns. I was doing puns instead of doing political stuff, and then I grew some balls and started doing political stuff instead. Also because puns are terrible. Nobody wants to hear puns. It actually put me back in my career. So I phone up promoters and they'd be like, "No, nobody likes puns here." And I'd be like, "I don't do puns. I just did it for the I was young. I needed the money."
Can you give us an example of a prize-winning pun?
Prize-winning pun. Marvin Gaye used to keep Marvin Gaye used to keep his sheep in my vineyard. He'd heard it through the grapevine.
It's not bad. It's not bad.
I used to do like dirty ones, like really evil ones. Like I went for a pedicure this morning. It didn't work. I'm still attracted to children. I'm thinking of fostering. I'm thinking of fostering a child. I'm going to see if I can get the whole can up its arse.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. So that put me aside from the other. Most puns are sort of fluffy and nice, and I did sort of evil ones.
I think we've already established that Tier 5 Friday is nothing like the lefty nonsense we see on the BBC. I hope we can get away with this. First of all, I want to put another point to you.
I am on the BBC next week, though.
You might not be there. This could be career ending.
Oh no, you're not.
Now, you are often referred to as a right-wing comedian. Does that mean you walk around the stage in jack boots and do Sieg Heil?
Yeah. Well, people have the wrong idea about right-wing people, because I think that is what people think about right-wing people. We're not like that anymore. It's not the 1970s. We're not all racist, homophobic, intolerant, xenophobics. So yeah, it's ridiculous. Basically, I just believe in like lower taxes and smaller government. You know what I mean? I'm not attending any rallies. It's different. So I think the intolerant people are now on the left, and there's a huge swathe of people in the middle who feel constrained, who feel like they can't speak their mind. They're worried about offending someone, or saying the wrong word, using the wrong pronoun or whatever term, and getting put in Twitter jail.
And do you get liberal lefty kind of hand-wringing hecklers?
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, I used to do the Free Fringe in Edinburgh, where you've got to be your own tech and your own security as well. So I had to jump off the stage once and actually bundle people out of the venue who are disrupting it.
So you basically beat in the hecklers?
Yeah, basically.
Why not?
yourself.
That's the sort of comedy you want. The comedy and the security.
Yeah, I mean, if I went to a comedy show, I'd way rather see a fist fight than any actual jokes. You know what I mean? So much more entertaining.
Silence is compliance. Right. That's our guess. If you want to switch off now, if you want to contact Ofcom, tough shit. We're not monitored by Ofcom. We're allowed to say what we want. So put that in your bonnet and smoke it. The first part of the show, and this is going to be a new regular, is our alternative news roundup. Now, this is a selection of slightly spicy and offbeat stories that have got the goat or floated the boat of our guests. And first, I'm going to turn to yourself again. A story that I think we should be talking a lot more about. And that is the impending impeachment, the last days of Donald Trump, and those incredible scenes in the Capitol building when there was the fort of democracy itself was stormed. You spotted a story here from The Economist. Tell us about that.
So this is interesting. I didn't realise this until I read it. The Senate session that was actually in process when the rioters stormed the Capitol building was to overturn the vote. So more than 2/3 of Republican representatives and over a quarter of senators were voting to overturn to stop the electoral college votes coming in, and they were going to hand Trump the victory. I mean, I don't know if it would have happened because the Democrats and stuff would have blocked it. But it's mad that the rioters actually, completely put the kibosh on that. So, I mean, I'm not one for conspiracy theories, but they definitely acted against Trump's interest by storming the Capitol building.
It's a really, really interesting story, this, and I think there are so many questions to answer. And did you see those incredible videos where the security just waved those guys in?
Yeah. Oh, there's amazing scenes. Did you see that? There's a picture of them actually following the roped corridor.
Yeah.
It's like the most polite rioters I've ever seen.
They were actually obeying social distancing rules while rioting. And the whole world set this up as, oh my God, they're taking over. It's a fascist uprising.
Yeah.
But they're actually being quite polite.
Oh man, the vibes I was getting from this weren't, fascist serious coup. This is more of a stag do got out of hand. It's mental. And like people say, oh, this is a serious coup attempt. It obviously wasn't. I mean, this is America. Like, you can't have just a few thousand trailer park methods go in and and do an actual coup on the most powerfully armed country in the world. Like, America's got a lot of form. It's got a lot of history of doing coups in Panama, Nicaragua, Iraq. They don't send in a few guys like this in woolly hats and
they're
stuff.
quite good at coups, the Americans.
Yeah, they've done loads. What they do is they go in with like big military tanks, like they've got AR-15s and attack choppers and
missiles.
Stuff. Yeah, totally cruise missiles
gunships.
firing it down, and they totally go in and raise it to the ground and destabilise the country for a couple of decades. They don't do this. This was obviously never going to get anywhere.
There was something that raised a few chuckles, and certainly me. It was great to see Jamiroquai back. I mean, here's a guy. He's been out in the wilderness since the 90s. He's been,
Where's he been?
Well, he's been driving Ferraris, probably smoking a bit of the old
killing buffalo by the looks of it.
Yeah,
I mean, he's sort of his clothes. I mean, he's topless, but he's wearing a woolly hat. He needs to sort of just balance out his clothes a bit. Just a smaller hat and a t-shirt, I think, would keep him the same temperature.
It was absolutely brilliant the way that Jamiroquai was actually trending on Twitter during this insurgence.
Yeah.
And he was forced to say it wasn't me. Which I thought was just amazing. It's like, we know it's not you twat.
Maybe if the guy looked like Liam Gallagher, I think it could be, but no.
The twat in the hat still holding the name well. But look, I think it's a story that's going to keep getting bigger and bigger, and the next couple of weeks, there is still that sense.
Yeah.
There could be real unpredictability in the air.
Yeah.
And what about this bigger conversation about what this means? I mean, there's been a huge purge of Twitter accounts.
Yeah.
We've seen the big tech media giants collaborating together.
Yeah.
It feels to me, I don't know, I mean, we're both big on our free speech issues.
Yeah.
This does feel like an issue that could ripple to our side of the pond as well.
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely. I mean, Trump was one of the few world leaders. The others, the EU, funnily enough, who's actually taking on big tech and taking on their stuff, because they're absolutely unchecked. The power of these billionaire tech leaders to police what we say, how we say it, police access to the sort of platforms for discourse in society. They've got unchecked power. So Trump was going to take them on. So they jumped at the chance shut him down. They banned him from, they banned Trump from not just social media, but also Conservatives have been banned from web hosting. They've been banned from email, banking, payment facilities, all the services you need to actually function and live life. And it's very dangerous. These decisions aren't being made by elected officials. They're not being made by statutory boards. They're being made by behind the walls of Twitter HQ by woke tech leaders who are just doing it themselves.
Yeah, it's interesting that, and I think the biggest joke, we're trying to be a comedy show, it's quite a serious issue, but the biggest joke, I think, is the authoritarian left are coming out and agreeing with the tech billionaires. It's like, I thought you hated billionaires.
Well,
last week
it started when the election began, because I've got 72,000 followers on UK politics, and that went down to 36,000. Immediately, the campaigning hotted up round about October. And then all of a sudden I went, and it's really demoralising is that, but all of a sudden I looked after they declared that Joe Biden was president, and all of a sudden, shabang, I'm actually back to full strength. And loads of right-wing sites have been cut down and eradicated from social media for about the last 3 years. I've noticed that with blogging about Brexit. But what struck me, one of those videos of this like massive coup, how dangerous they are, and Nancy Pelosi, who I thought made the most sense I've ever heard, because she actually said, and I thought, can't disagree with that. What is that mask about? I think she sleeps in it at night. Have you seen it? It starts just under her eyelids and it finishes before a third facelift. Unbelievable. What a woman. And I'm watching this video of them storming. Do you remember the word in the clip is? And there's this doll-like creature saying, and they're storming the White House right now. Oh my God. And then we cut to them storming. One woman's obviously checking her emails as she's storming in, and there's another pair of them stood there like that, taking a photo, taking a selfie in front of one of the pictures of like a president like that. I mean, they didn't exactly look what I would call dangerous. I've seen worse in Weatherspoons. So comedic, and I'm still trying to work out the quantum of physics. I'm going to have to get CERN involved on my take on it, because according to the mainstream news channels, Trump incited it, but it started an hour before he spoke. Now, I'm not up on maths, but something tells me that's not right.
Okay, so Leo, on a serious point, there is, I believe, quite a sinister move going on here. Because isn't it funny how the biggest joke about all of this was how the authoritarian left, the Democratic Party and the Labour Party in the UK, are completely on the same page as the tech billionaires.
Yeah.
I thought they hated billionaires.
Yeah, I mean, the worrying thing for me about this is that these decisions, these no platforming decisions, they're not just removing Conservatives from social media, they're removing their banking facilities, payment processing, email, web hosting. So, everything you need to actually live in 2021. The next thing they're going to be doing is removing their food, their ability to, shop in Tesco, their access to water and stuff like that. But the worrying thing about it is it's being done. It's not being done by statutory agencies or anything with any sort of oversight or accountability by elected officials. It's being done by these tech oligarchs who are operating completely opaquely, completely according to their own bias, and are completely unchecked. So that's a very worrying trend, and left-wing people should be worried too, because what we've seen over the last 4 years is everything the left does comes back to bite them. So they riot for a year, they spend a year rioting, right-wing people riot, and then it's suddenly a problem. And everything, conspiracy theories. We had Trump being dragged over. They were saying Russia stole the election in 2016. Then Trump refuses. Then Trump has all these conspiracy theories about the election being stolen in 2020. And so everything comes back around and comes back to bite them. So they should be very worried about these moves being made.
Totally agree, and it's a big story to watch. Let's go back to the north now. Story number 2. June Slater. Charlie Mullins. He's not a character a lot of people might have heard of. If you don't know who he is, he's a kind of barrow boy that owns Pimlico Plumbers. He's got, I think, one of the worst wigs in Britain. His teeth look like they're made from recycled toilet bowls. But anyway, let's talk, June, about what he's been saying about the COVID vaccine.
Well, Charlie Mullins, I'm sure that's a made-up Cockney name, like Tommy Steele. Like, yeah, let's have a go, lads. Open up your toilet, 900 quid, mate. 900 quid. I'll be there next day. No problem. No job, no vax. Yeah, right-o. I first came across it. Sweep your chimneys, Governor. We're still sending them up the chimneys down here. I came across him with Brexit, and he started putting on his vans bollocks to Brexit. And I thought, how can somebody self-employed that's employing other people think bollocks to Brexit? It's going to be a massive, massive benefit for people with small and medium-sized businesses. But no, Charlie wants to stay in the EU either. Then all of a sudden, Charlie, I think, there's these conspiracy sites, that say that there's holograms and clones and God knows what. I think he's related to Nancy Pelosi, or he's using the same view. Because whatever old Charlie's doing with them profits he's making, loads of money, obscene amounts of money, 900 quid for a plumber for call out. I think Charlie's not spending it in the right place because his Botox, it's gone like on riot. It's everywhere. It's up his eyelids. It's going everywhere. I've seen less protection from a duvet. There's like lumps of it everywhere. And we're supposed to listen to this guy. The mainstream media, yet again, wheel out someone that's singing their song. And now he's backtracking, have you noticed? It was no job.
Let us know what he's been saying about the vaccine before we totally annihilate his character.
Charlie, he says, he starts off by saying in a report that if you ain't got a vax, you ain't got a job. Yeah, right. Then all of a sudden, all these people that's working for him, like I don't know who they are, like they're not maybe as just as Charlie and as just as Tommy Steele and Little White Book. It might not be just as bad as him. I think they kicked up a bit of a fuss. And at the end of the day, even the government aren't saying, you must have the vaccine. The government is saying, we're trying to help you get it. We're trying to get it out as fast as you can. But not Charlie's going to beat Boris to it. He's going to have his plumbers. His plumbers are going to be up there. Yeah. Tommy stealing their way to your gas. They're going to unblock your Fiat turrets that you laid 3 months earlier because you've never been out your house because you're too scared to go.
Okay, June. Well, okay. June, hang on a minute, darling. June, put a stopcock in it. Put a stopcock in it for a minute. Now, for the benefit I know you don't like him. I think we've worked that one out. For the benefit of those who can't speak fluent, chirpy Cockney Sparrow, for the benefit of those who can't speak Third Reich, what June was saying there was he's saying any future employees of Pimlico Plumbers will have to have a vaccination. It almost looked like every current employee would have to. He was on the media, doing the media rounds. Leo, I think this guy is doing this for shameless PR.
Yeah.
And I also think he is doing it because most of his customers who can afford him are maybe a bit older, they live in London, they vote Remain. I think this is just treacherous PR.
Yeah, I mean, it's PR, and it's saying to these customers, you're going to be safe with us, we've all had the jab and stuff like that. But again, it's an example of the private sector coming in and imposing rules that it shouldn't, this should be up to, even like June says, even the government doesn't have the power to compel people to have the vaccine.
Yeah.
So I don't know why he's coming in and telling their workers, you got to have this injection in your arm. I mean, I'll have the vaccine, but I can understand why people wouldn't want to have it. It's been rushed through. Sometimes, sometimes stuff needs a little time to cook and, be tested. I don't want to be the first person having this vaccine. First person was 92. I'm going to see how they get on. If they're still around in 15 years' time.
And we've got a little joke coming up down the line. That there are some jokes in this show. It's coming down the line about who we think should get the vaccination first. But let's not spoil that. June, on this guy, there's a serious point to this Charlie fella who's been hovering around the media for a long time. This personalised number plates. He's minted previous toy donor. He sees himself as standing as London mayor. Ooh. Is this him posturing to the metropolitan elite in London?
Yeah, well, I think it is, because I think if you can stand as London mayor as a candidate and you can maybe sing a few little songs on the way and unblock a few toys. I mean, the other thing you've got to think of here is there going to be a little old ladies there drawing down on their life savings for 900 quid to unblock the lad. And
Just a moment, Ethel. You feeling a bit nervous over the jab and wondering if you should have it? Oh, just ring Charlie Mullins, my plumber. He knows all about it. Who is this guy? You can unblock toilets, and you're probably not so bad with PTFE, and you're not so bad with bloody putty and putting window frames back in. I mean, if you can unblock a toilet and get a jobby removed, that's fine. But I'm not going to come to you for advice on whether or not I should have the vaccine. I think I might just be asking my GP.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, stick to unblocking the bogs. But by the way, got a funny picture. She's off again. She's off again. It's like she's been possessed by the ghost of Dick Van Dyke. We did find this funny picture because I think.
I've been possessed.
I did think I would never trust anybody who looks like a ventriloquist's dummy. Look at this picture. So I think Charlie looks like a ventriloquist dummy. I wouldn't trust this guy with my U-bend. I wouldn't trust this guy with anything in my house. And a funny thing happened when we were doing some picture research on this. I typed in scary ventriloquist dummies, and look what else came up. Who's this? Katie Hopkins. There's a Katie Hopkins ventriloquist dummy. She signed for UKIP yesterday, so maybe she's got someone's hand up her backside. Poor joke. And finally, let's move on. Here's another one. Who's this? Who do you reckon?
Ian Brown.
Ian Brown. Although somebody actually said it looks like a slightly younger and healthier Cliff Richard. You see that? And one of our users gave him spectacles, and it really does look like Paston from ITV. And this.
My avatar.
It's your avatar. I saw your avatar yesterday. You've got a moustache in it, June. I'd ask for a refund.
I know. And I put down I wanted to be Wonder Woman, and I'm fat. I'm a fat Wonder Woman with a tash.
That's very 2021.
That will actually be the next movie. The next movie will be an obese, bearded feminist. Yeah, the next Wonder Woman will be obese, feminist, and bearded. It's 2021. Right, let's move on to my story now. This, I think, is a fascinating story. It's from the New York Times. We're quite well read around here. The Economist, the New York Times, and Good Morning Britain. There's always one next to it. This is a story. Honestly, I didn't know this existed. OnlyFans is a social media platform that allows users to sell nude or explicit photographs of themselves to their followers. And apparently, it's really interesting actually, it's become something that people blighted by losing their jobs during the COVID lockdown have turned to doing. So there's a story here, and one of the people made $64,000 since July. That young lady, she's quite easy on the eye. 64 grand, she's a 23-year-old called Savannah Benavides from New York, nothing like him. And she's made a lot of money doing this. But what's been happening, and this is where I think this gets really funny. First of all, who pays for porn?
I know it's free. Like I've never, as long as the internet has existed, for as long as the internet has existed,
It's not the point of the internet.
I've never paid for porn. It's not like in the old days when you used to you got bequeathed it by an older cousin or something. Or you got the I remember the sort of early form of porn was like pub snacks were mounted on a card that a naked woman printed on it. So you'd have to buy the scampi fries every week, and you'd slowly reveal this woman like a rudimentary form of internet downloading.
Do you remember hedge porn?
Yeah, it'd appear in a bush in a lay-by. Like some kind of, it's like a biblical message.
Yeah. I figured out, and June, maybe you can shed some light on this. That came out wrong, didn't it? June, maybe you should say, I've heard the best theory for this is that it was truckers. Truckers who are buying jazz mags at service stations want to get rid of them before they go home and see their wives. You meant to know the answer to that, June?
Actually, I'm thinking of leaving my household and risking lockdown conditions to nip to a few laybys and offer them a quick flash of my
Careful.
my fairy bits. I say, madam, do you have a dog bleed for that? I think they'd think I'd come out of Jurassic Park if I got that. I think that's a bit of an earner, isn't it? I
yes, there are. So June, the answer is yes. This is gender inclusive self-exploitation. Men are doing it too. Good. Do you want to log on? You can get an account for free. But obviously, porn being porn and the free market being the free market, there are much more women selling their wares and there are much more male customers. But it then goes on, which I think something that you've got an opinion on, to show another picture of this lady here. Don't know if you can see that, but it's fair to say she's not quite as hot as the first woman, and she only made $500 a month.
Aww.
And she's saying it's not fair.
Yeah, well, this is the real prejudice. People say, prejudice in society is around ethnicity, it's around gender, it's around sexuality. No, the biggest prejudice in society is around looks. If you're good looking, good looking women don't even know that drinks cost money. Never pay for a dinner. They can put pictures of their arse on OnlyFans. They get all this money chucked at them. It's ridiculous. If you're ugly, man, you've got to go out and work and struggle. You know? Yeah. It's horrific.
It's been really interesting though the feedback to this, because this is basically internet pornography again. Something that the liberal left were dead against. It was an exploitation issue. It was white privileged men taking advantage of poor bedraggled feminists. Now they're saying it's an outrage that people aren't buying the pornography. They're outraged that they're not buying pornography of girls who aren't hot. That's what this story is about. And I'm afraid that it's a ridiculous world. But anyway, we can talk about pornography in an intellectual way.
Yeah. In
the New York Times, no less. That, ladies and gentlemen, is an example of the kind of stories we're going to be covering on Tier 5 Friday. We're not the Andrew Marr show, are we? I think we've established this is a little bit offbeat, but we just felt it was time for something a bit different. Everyone's pissed off in their bunkers. If you like what we're doing, click on that support button. For a few pounds a month, less than the price of a pint of beer, which you can't even buy anyway now, you can help make media that makes a difference. Please support Unlocked. We're here to try and change the script and have a bit of fun in this joyless media landscape. Okay. Now then, what we did this week on the Unlocked Twitter feed and on my own, and we pushed it all around, and we had 5,500 votes on this. We asked you to tell us who are the most annoying people or things of the week. Now, we all nominated one thing. So say his name, but don't go into your rant just yet, June Slater. Who did you nominate this week?
Piers Morgan.
Piers Morgan. Now, I think I've detected, Leo, that I don't want to misassign your nationality, but I think you're Scottish.
I am Scottish.
Yeah, you're Scottish. Who did you nominate?
I nominated Nicola Sturgeon.
Yes.
And my choice was COVID coppers.
Oink.
Yeah. The fun police who give you a ticket for anything that's enjoyable. But let's go in age order. June Slater, you're first. You're first.
Living proof that pensioners still count, even though they don't get the pension. Piers Morgan, well, I kind of warmed to him a bit during Brexit because he started kind of standing up for us, didn't he, and saying that we shouldn't be called thick and stupid. And then he's gone back on the whatever it is he smokes that makes him an arse. And he's sat there pontificating, overweight, and can I say, according to Chris Whitty, in the vulnerable category. We all have to be a little bit careful. Even I'm watching my weight at the moment. I'm watching it increase, actually. Pajamas fit me like leggings, Piers, so I know what it's like to try and keep the pounds off. But Piers, he's there. He's one of the worst ones for being a celeb, with his lifestyle completely uninterrupted. He goes to work, it's probably easy for him, it's easy to park, it's easy to get about, and he sits there, salary paid, pension paid, kids being educated, there's no problem. And he's telling us to stay at home and put up with it. And he doesn't make any allowances for, say, someone like Shirley in Burnley, who's sat in a terraced house with 3 kids, 1 laptop between them. How the hell does she get her kids educated? How the hell does she take any exercise? She lives on a bypass.
You know, just sitting about isn't going to be easy, is it? And he expects her and people like her to shut up and put up whilst he flies off to Antigua. I'm not bothered about him flying off to Antigua. Anybody can have a holiday. They're travelling legally, but not when you've sat there for month after month telling us lot to stay home. That's what gets on my nerves about him. And the last time he raised his ugly head in Great Britain was when he was in the hacking scandal and making fake photographs or allowing fake photographs of our soldiers allegedly peeing on Iraqi troops. Not on, Piers. We thought you'd learned your lesson. Now you're just taking the piss out of the working class. And we don't want to be taking the piss out of, because we're the ones that's putting up with it all. We're the ones that haven't got the jobs, haven't got the pubs, haven't got the businesses, haven't got the kids educated, waiting for cancer treatment. We just have the gallstones out, going blind because cataracts have been cancelled. Oh no, but shut up, stay home and just concentrate on one thing whilst you're getting on with it very nicely. You hypocrite, just bugger off.
Yeah, I got that. Right, June. And look, here is our high-tech wall of shame. It's a bit of bleeding cardboard. If you can donate to us next week, we'll afford a piece of plywood. We can up as we go along. Top of the list, Piers Morgan. Leo, why does this individual annoy you?
Same reason as Judy. He's hypocritical, and it sort of really shows the gulf. And the gulf in how COVID is treated with like working class people to posh people. Like Piers has got the freedom, he's got a big house, he's got the freedom to jet off to Antigua. Apparently middle class families are saving £400 a month during the coronavirus crisis, whereas like working class people are losing £200 a month. Yeah. So and that's £200. Sometimes that's all I've got in a month. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like, I totally agree with that. There are two big reasons that I want to add to this. The first, I don't believe anything Piers Morgan says, and I'll tell you why. He changes his opinions on everything and anything to go where the clicks are. Look at this picture here. It's a picture of him with his nose in Donald Trump's backside.
Yum yum.
If you remember, you know, 4 years ago he was Trump's best buddy.
Yeah.
When the HMS Trump started sinking, he jumped off like a rat. And that's what I don't like. I think he just changes his opinion all the time. Yeah. Secondly, for a guy who wrote a book about woke politics, he is Britain's biggest man baby. Yeah. That photograph there, he complained about it 3 times. He complained to Ofcom. You would never do this to a middle class white presenter. Look, you're there to take this flat. You know, so I think he's a hypocrite, and I don't believe anything he says. I just say I think he is a click machine. Yeah. And what's slightly annoying about this, he'll probably be happy that we're here talking about him. Yeah, absolutely. He loves any attention, and that hypocrisy is right across wokeism. Even Twitter themselves. Trump made Twitter. You know, Twitter's popularity was boosted by Trump's like the 7th most liked account on Twitter. So Trump really sort of brought Twitter up and made it this political. It wasn't just people tweeting stupid jokes at each other. It was this political platform. And now, as soon as Trump's no use to them anymore, they drop him like that. There you go. That's good. That's great. So there we go. I think Piers Morgan is firmly in. We're reading out at the end of this. There's still time to vote. If you're watching, we're going to read out the votes and who's the winner. Next candidate, Leo. There she is. Nicola Sturgeon. I don't know if you've been following what she's been doing in Scotland, but the lockdown is way harsher. It's even harsher than the one in the rest of the UK. Because basically Sturgeon's in this beautiful position of, you know, anything that goes wrong she can blame on Westminster, and anything that goes well she can take the credit for. So, you know, she's politically in a perfect decision. But just this week she's banned. Scots can no longer get takeaways. In fact, we got a short video of that. Can we play that video in there? She actually banned takeaways in Scotland. Let's look at this now. This is her frying some chips.
Secondly, we intend to apply restrictions to takeaway services. Customers will no longer be permitted to go inside to collect takeaway food or coffee. Any outlet wishing to offer takeaway will have to do so from a serving hatch or doorway. This is to reduce the risk of customers coming into contact indoors with each other or with staff.
So, Leo, they banned takeaways in Scotland. They also banned drinking in parks.
Yeah.
They're two of Scotland's favourite national pastimes.
Now I'm not sure what Scottish people are going to do for dinner. It's terrible. But also banning outdoor drinking in January. Who's like in Aberdeen and it's like, well, oh, let's go to, it's minus 12. Let's go down to the park, break the ice on the bench and sit there and drink some cans of cider. Man, nobody's like, Scotland's weather system is enough to ban outdoor drinking. On a serious note, like it's actually driving the use, like Scotland, because in Scotland you can't, even during the lockdown when the pubs were open, they weren't allowed to sell booze. Like, who's going to the pub in Scotland and be like, oh yeah, let's have a pint of Evian? You know what I mean? This is Scotland. Like, of course we want to get drunk. So they've got a really harsh approach to alcohol, which means that drug abuse is shooting up. That's not a pun. Like, drug abuse in Scotland is literally going through the roof. It's trebled. Drug deaths have trebled in Scotland like since the SNP took power. By far the highest in Europe. It's shocking. And also there's the rise of this sort of xenophobic, racist nationalism in Scotland under Sturgeon. I mean, you see in this picture, you've got these are nationalists, these are SNP supporters actually at the border shouting at English cars, telling them to fuck off and stay. You know, don't bring your English diseases up here, you know. Yeah. And then can you imagine if Tommy Robinson or somebody was at Dover shouting at people coming into the UK, oh fuck off, stay, you know, go back to the continent. There'd be outcry. They'd be like absolutely slammed. You know, instead Sturgeon took like 48 hours to even acknowledge it was happening. Never mind condemn it.
But what's that picture right there?
That's graffiti on a war memorial. So there's a really ugly side to Scottish nationalism. It's, you know, the SNP is just the flip side of the BNP, and I don't know why there's not the scrutiny on Scottish nationalism that there is on English nationalism. Here we've got, so this is that logo there is from Sean Nan Gael. That's an ethnic nationalist fascist Scottish group. They used to be banned. The SNP used to have them at arm's length because they used to do petrol bomb attacks and stuff in the 80s. Now the SNP are marching shoulder to shoulder with them. They've got this, you know, that's basically a Scottish swastika. They've got like Sean Nan Gael right up at the front of the march. You know, Tories come out. Tory in Scotland is a sort of euphemism for English people. They don't understand. Like, this is the thing, Scottish nationalists, they are racist. Scotland's like overwhelmingly, it's 96% white. England is about 84% white, so England's a far more ethnically diverse place. So these Scottish nationalists are saying, oh, we don't want you coming up here, and they're basically, you know, there's a racist element to it.
So you've been making some videos about all this, right? So on a slight divergence here, you know, tell us about your involvement with this and how, you know, politically you're so opposed to the SNP. What mainly driving for an Indie Ref too? Yeah,
I mean, I'm really worried about the Indie Ref too because of Brexit, it's got a good chance of going through. And I mean, I don't want Scotland to leave the UK, and then they're saying you know, they want to rejoin the EU as Scotland, but the EU's turned around to them and said, no, you can't join the EU because of your debt and unsustainable finances. Like, they've already got one Greece, they don't need another Greece with like shit weather and no olives. So so yeah, it's ridiculous. But yeah, just, you know, I don't understand the Scottish mentality of just hating the English so much. The English are like the sort of straight white men of the UK. So they say anything about the English and it's it's smiled on. But I think it's dangerous. I don't like this disharmony. I don't want the UK to be broken up.
Well, I mean, we are proud unionists here. I certainly am. As an MEP, I remember I used to try and ask this question to every SNP MEP that ever spoke, and they would never take it. And my question was quite simply, wave your card, explain to us how Scotland can meet the economic criteria to join the European Union. They can't. There's no getting around that. They can't. And secondly, the Belgians and the Spanish will always vote against it as member states because they don't want to pour petrol on the fires of their own separatist movements, the Catalonian movement and the Flemish movement. And I'm afraid they'll have to respect that democracy. I think, despite all of this week it was in the Daily Mail, Nicola Sturgeon is surging in popularity, and I'm now hearing a 57% likelihood of the support for a second referendum. How serious is this? And we're getting a bit serious. Can you tell us a little joke to lighten things up?
Oh man, I wish I could. No, I can't think of any funny side to it at all. It's shocking. I mean, the worst thing is, like, as a Scot who sort of, you know, lives in London or spent a lot of time living in London, I don't even get a vote. All the Scots who left Scotland to come to London, because, you know, obviously you would. I'm not going to stay in Dumfries, you know, chase sheep around the hills all day, you know. That gets boring after a while. So, you know, I moved down to London like a lot of Scottish people, and Scottish people like run the country. We're all through. I worked in the government, I worked in the police. Scottish people are all through, represented so strongly in government, civil service, police, military, all the rest of it. In England, in England, and you know, for us to throw that away and then just become, you know, bosses of our own little, you know, it's basically a golf course with a distillery on it. You know, there's. It's not why we want to leave, you know, having like this power in this, you know, big nation and just become this like little parochial sort of inward-looking nation.
And how kind of how unpopular does that stance make you in Scotland?
Yeah, it makes me a lot of the SNP have played their cards very well, to be fair. So they made university tuition free, or not free, rather they taxed bus drivers and plumbers to pay for posh people to go and study, you know, sociology. But so university tuition fees are free in Scotland. So that encouraged Scottish people to stay in Scotland. So Scottish youth stayed in Scotland, got this free education, and because of that they think the SNP are amazing. Whereas I think it'd be healthier if they'd actually sort of, you know, been encouraged to, you know, become a diaspora and go out and discover the world and learn that English people aren't bad. I mean, a lot of my Scottish mates who stayed in Scotland think that English people look down on us and all the rest of it. It's ridiculous. It's just a different accent. We're all pretty much the same, and I've you know, found very, very little, you know, antipathy towards Scottishness in London or anywhere in England.
Good. June Slater, are you going to lighten the mood with a Scottish impression of Nicola Sturgeon by any chance?
You've got to remember, I've hated the wee dwarf since the beginning of Brexit because of her attitude to all things Brexit. Now, the silly woman, she said she wanted to change things forever. They were going to have deep-fried croissants, and they were going to call West Highland White the Euro Terrier and the Scottie the Brussels Badger. She wants to hold the meetings in Euro Disney. The woman's crazed, and not everyone likes her, I can tell you that. She spends that much time getting ready for these TV appearances. She gets the information about the virus at the same time Boris does, and she goes out before him. She just picks him at the post. Someone told me, who works pretty closely, that she spends all morning getting ready, making sure there's not a lock of hair or her Spanx are nice and tight under a wee suitie. She doesn't want to look, because sometimes, and the sign woman, let's pick a big fat woman that's a lot bigger and worse looking than me to sign. Well, I'd love to sign for Nicola Sturgeon. I'd just be stood behind going. I'd love to sign for Nicola Sturgeon. Oh, she does my head. I'll tell you a funny story now. Somebody, how strange. A guy rang up and this is what he said. This is how it went down. Something was kicking off in Brussels and Nicola wanted to speak to Jean-Claude Juncker. So this is what I got told. Here's the phone. She rings, bonjour, Brussels, how may I help you? Good morning, could I speak to Jean-Claude Juncker, please? Who may I say is calling? It's Nicola Sturgeon. I'm sorry, Nicola. Sturgeon, Nicola Sturgeon. Could you tell me, please, what it is regarding? I'm the Queen of Scotland. I'm the leader of Scotland, the First Minister of Scotland. And where is Scotland? I'm the First Minister. Will you put me through, please? I'm a world leader on the world stage. Oh, in a moment, I will try the department for you. So, music plays. I think of bonjour, may I help you? Nicola Sturgeon here. Could I speak to Jean-Claude Juncker? I'm sorry, who are you? Nicola Sturgeon. Could you spell that for me, please? Oh, for fuck's sake. And the phone went down. This is what I got told. Now, somebody might be just playing about, but it sounds pretty much like the truth. Who is Nicola Sturgeon? They haven't heard of her in Poland.
Well, do you like your,
join off her own bat. She wants to join the EU off her own bat.
Well,
I
yeah,
mean,
this is the problem. This is the
controls
problem.
less people than Yorkshire, and nobody's saying a word in Yorkshire about how to run things.
Yeah.
And she stands there as though UKIP, when it was UKIP, got more votes on one seat, and the SNP cleaned up with 50 odd seats at the time. Terrible. It's a miscarriage of flipping democracy, is that, to be listening to this woman.
June, I think we've established you don't Sturgeon much either. Let's move on to the final nomination. This is my nomination of COVID cops. There's a nice little blue tit on the blue background. And I want to start off by saying we did a serious show on this on Unlock last week about I feel the police has completely lost its mind during the COVID lockdown. I've always been a huge supporter of the police. I supported the police especially when they were getting stomped on and attacked and projectiles thrown at them during the Black Lives Matter protests. They seemed ill-prepared, under-equipped. And then I started to think, but that's kind of part of the problem, because they're soft-soaping certain movements. Extinction Rebellion, Black Lives Matter, two key examples. The rest of us were observing the lockdown, but we were getting slagged off for having a gin and tonic on VE Day in the streets.
Yeah.
People who were going to the beaches were getting slagged off. And there's a real emergence, I think, of like a two-tiered system that was emerging. You weren't allowed to criticise one lot, but you were absolutely allowed to steam into the rest. This week I'm choosing this story because there are two incidents that have really, really appalled me. Let's play this video quickly. This was an arrest at Bournemouth Beach. Let's have a look at this.
What's going on? Why are you putting your hands on your back? What are you doing? I was sitting on a bed. I was sitting on a bed. What the hell are you doing to this woman? I was sitting on a bed. Your own law. This is disgusting. What are you doing? What is woman doing? You've got to choose your side.
And what was really interesting about that is that later on, Leo, I think it was on Tuesday, the police said, oh, we didn't arrest them for sitting on a park bench. We arrested them because they'd been on an anti-lockdown protest.
Really? They admitted that?
They admitted that. And when you looked into that protest, there were about 12 people. I've been to bigger barbecues. I've seriously been to
Which
bigger
would also be illegal right now.
Yeah, which should also be illegal. And the protest had ended about 2 hours before that, but they nicked them for a crime previous to that incident. And they said that as if that was a justification for the arrest.
Yeah.
Which actually, to me, is doubling down on the current stupidity and the mindset. It's like, you cannot sit by and allow protesters to set fire to the cenotaph, to vandalise the Churchill statue, to run riot and attack coppers and throw bikes at police horses and then arrest someone for having a cup of coffee without losing the public, can you?
Yeah, I mean, it's the politicisation of the police. They're now a sort of legislative force, an arm of the government. So it's completely unfair the way they're treating different protesters. And also, we've just seen our human rights just go up in flames as soon as lockdown came in. So our right to protest, but also our right to free movement, to free association, to practice religion, to have a family. All of that just gone, and the police. I think part of it also, they're going after easy targets. They're going after soft targets. Like my mate Barry, he's 6'4" and he's built like a shit brick house, and he doesn't wear a mask, and the police never do anything to him. But they'll go after like some little old lady instead, or they'll go after like two women drinking a peppermint tea by a reservoir because they know they're not going to get a black eye from it.
And another thing, June Slater, they're poking their nose in. Is they're now telling us who we're allowed to have sex with, or who we're not allowed to have sex with. I don't know why I
wish
hear
someone
that.
had told me when I was Somebody should have had that rule when I was 17. I think that, what gets me is, in all this, the real person that really gets on my pit, is Professor Neil Ferguson. Now, the thing is, we've lost every single liberty we've got, and nobody is doubting the hospitals aren't busy. And the nurses are frazzled, of course they are. But that is nothing to do with lockdown and the British public. This is to do with decades of mismanagement of our taxes, spending on vanity products like HS2, foreign aid and space. Good God, weapons. What should have happened in 2018 when Theresa May was running through a cornfield and ended up at a Bill Gates conference, who basically, like him or not, told you how to prepare? What did he say? The four main things: stock up on PPE. We know it's perishable, but you can still stock up. Increase your ICU capacity and increase general bed capacity. Those are your three top things. We've got a population that's going up by the millions, and we've got bed capacity being depleted by the thousands. Who thought of that? This is not the public wanting to go out and do their normal life, to get on and see their family and see their loved ones and have some pleasure. That is not the problem here. The problem is the public have had it shoved in the face that it's their responsibility to now look after the NHS because it's been completely abused by officials for 2 decades and not taken care of properly. They had a 4-1 in 2018 and they didn't know. But Ferguson had the nerve during a full-on lockdown when we didn't know very much about it. And bearing in mind, he's the head honcho. He is the numero uno. He's the expert that's been involved in loads of pandemics and got a lot of them wrong from what I can see. And he had the nerve to see his married bint invited around for a quick coffee and mince and then got caught out. He was isolated because he tested positive. Now, if that man doesn't understand the dangers, how can you expect the public to believe that this is real? You've got to look at what's going on. And still have the audacity to have the bloody worm back advising them right now. Yes, stepped out of state, out of SID, blah, 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 off he goes, and comes back in under another advisory committee. And we're supposed to take this seriously. This is not the British public that's getting this wrong at all. This is officials who have bled this country down, mismanaged our taxes. If they've spent our money on things we never got asked about and didn't ask for. I think every single person can agree with that.
Well said, June. Well said, June. Right, there we have it. That's the first ever Tier 5 Friday Wall of Shame. Piers Morgan, Nicola Sturgeon, and the Fun Police. Let's have a look at the results. Have we got the results from Twitter? Hey, June, you've won, darling. You've won. Piers Morgan. Piers Morgan. 49% for the king of hypocrisy. Nicola Sturgeon came, she had a late surge actually. She was in 3rd place yesterday. So I think maybe you got all your mates to pile in. Nicola Sturgeon 27.5% and the COVID cops on 23.5%. Now, the thing about this is that Piers Morgan will either love it or he's going to block us all and have a bit of a tantrum. And I'd like to get a little hashtag going on Twitter. Hashtag why Piers Morgan blocked me. Because I'm blocked by Piers Morgan and I couldn't figure out for the life of me why. I've never really said anything about him. Except I ran a Twitter poll on Unlocked and I said, who should be the first person in Britain to get this vaccine, which at the time was completely untested. But Piers was saying every day we should all get it almost as a mandatory fact. So I put Piers Morgan, Matt Hancock, NHS frontline workers. Piers Morgan won that poll by a landslide. I need a visual prop, Alex, because the reason I got blocked by Piers Morgan was the top comment. The top comment was, I would like to see Piers Morgan get the vaccine live on Good Morning Britain with a silicone gun rectally. That's what they said. I tweeted that. Piers Morgan blocked me. What a snowflake Piers Morgan is. That's back to my original point. He can give it out, but he cannot take it. I think a deserving winner of the first ever Wall of Shame. I've got a few comments coming in. Natalie, pass it over here, please, darling. Okay, now what size is that? Can you read that?
Just about.
I need to get Braille.
Sorry.
Right, we've got a few. Now, June, no surprise here, these comments are love letters and fans' praise to you. Ozzy Osbourne, not the real one.
No, not the real.
Ozzy Osbourne, careful, June, you're in danger of becoming a celebrity yourself. Ooh. We love your straight talking, no bullshit way. You're brilliant. Lorna Child, have you paid these people to put these comments on? June. Lorna Child, I can't abide the hypocrisy of them. They're an absolute disgrace to the country. They can swan off abroad while the rest of us are locked in our bunkers. I don't watch much TV anymore, either the BBC or ITV, who they do not tell the truth, and all an absolute disgrace. Jane Webb, hi June, I hope you're well. Piers Morgan. Piers Morgan. That's a good one. I'm going to start using that. Piers Morgan said at the start of all this year that he was a key worker. But actually, we are key workers as journalists. And that's the only reason that we're allowed in here to actually broadcast this. Yeah. So I guess we should be slightly thankful. And finally, Jane Elizabeth Hatcher, right on June, good old common sense. cocky Piers. There's a shameful character in my opinion. So June, the public agree with you. You've called it right. That's one in the bag for you. We're going to keep doing this every week. I want the Wall of Shame to be a bit like Top Gear's, kind of Stig, that record, and by the end I think Piers Morgan's going to be out the fucking roof. You know what I mean? He's going to get so many votes, but we're going to keep this going every week. Right, it's been an action-packed show. Leo, I've been doing a lot of talking.
Yeah.
So why don't you give everyone out there a good old belly laugh, cheer us all up, before we drink a beer and say good night to the TFI Friday audience.
Okay, cool. I'm just going to talk about how coronavirus is not all bad for Scotland. I mean, the average age of coronavirus deaths in Scotland is actually above the average life expectancy, which is about 31, because it's Scotland. You know. But that's mad. The average life expectancy is older than the average coronavirus death is older than the average life expectancy. That means in Scotland, coronavirus isn't an illness; it's an antioxidant. We should be giving it to old people so they can enjoy a couple of extra years on the golf course. And there's other benefits as well. Like we're seeing a move to a cashless society. Everywhere wants you to tap now, which frankly, as a Scottish person, is wonderful. The bane of my life is trying to spend Scottish money in England. Like, it's mad. I spend a lot of time in England because that's where my house is. And, man, it's murder. None of the shops down in England want to take my money. It's the same money. It's the same money as English money. It's just got different superheroes on it. Like, instead of the Queen and Charles Dickens, it's got Susan Boyle and Mel Gibson or whatever. But like, none of the shops want to take it. I was in Morrison's a couple of weeks back, and I was doing my big shop, and I got to the checkout, and I gave the lassie behind the checkout a Scottish £10 note, because I can do the big shop for £10 because I'm Scottish. And she just looked at it and said, "Is this real?" Like, as if I could fake money, I'd fake Scottish money. You know what I mean? The one money you can't spend in 90% of the United Kingdom. She said, "I'm going to have to get the manager to see if we can accept this." So I was like, "Don't worry about that, I'll just tap for it, I'll put it on my card." And she said, "Well, the tapping machine's not working, so shove your card in the slot and I'll print off a slip and you sign it like in the old days." So I put my card in, she prints off the slip, I sign it, I give it back to her. Then she says, "I need to check the signature on the back of your card to validate the one you just signed." So I give her my card as well. And she said, "I can't accept this card because you haven't signed the back of it." Because I hadn't signed the back of it, because you don't have to sign for anything anymore.
No,
it's all just tapping, you know what I mean? So I said, "Well, give me the card back. And give me that pen as well." I signed the card in front of her and I said, "Can you accept it now?" And she said, "I suppose so." And then, I'm not joking, she held up the card and she held up the slip I just signed and she made sure the signatures matched. Oh my God.
Even though she watched you do it.
Yeah. Man, some people are worried about robots taking their jobs. If I was her, I'd be worried about a Labrador taking my job.
Oh, superb. Look, so that's cheered me up. It's certainly cheered this mob up. You know, it's really great to do this show. We kind of banged it together in a couple of days. Maybe you can tell. You know, it's been a labour of love, because I don't know about you, we're just getting so bored of being told we should be terrified and staying at home and having no life by the media. We want to do something a bit different, an injection of common sense, or an injection of something into Piers Morgan's rectum, or maybe a bit of both. But thanks for tuning in. We're going to be doing this every week. Don't forget, please press that support button. You know, get behind us. You can help make media that makes a difference. We're the new kids on the block, but we've gone up 27% in 1 week. In 1 week, 27%, and that's thanks to the likes of June Slater, the Queen of Lift. Leo Kerr's offensive right-wing comedian who's the British pun champion. Beautiful. And myself, Martin Dorby. I've been here since the start. We've been making alternative media on Unlocked since the very, very beginning of lockdown 1. We hope that we've helped you to stay sane and today to keep a smile on your face. Thank you for watching the first ever episode of TF5 Friday. We're back next Friday and we have Dominic Frisby in the chair. He of 17 million
Right.
Yeah. 17 million bleep off. What's the point of bleeping now? We've been swearing like squadded. We've been swearing like squadded for the last hour, and suddenly on the final sentence, let's say bleep. Whoever's doing the bleep machine, could you be on overtime? Anyway, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. We've been Unlocked. All the best.